Good evening, everybody. So, as you know, I often sit with college students at various campuses. So one of the fun questions I like to ask them is, name for me a person who is smart. So what do they say? Name a person who's smart? Person who's smart?
Einstein.
Great. They all say Einstein, right? Name a person who is wealthy. So what do they say?
Rothschild.
Okay, great. Right? Those people. So then I ask them a third question a lot, which is, name a person who's good. A person who possesses the quality of virtue very much. So what do they say?
Rabbi. Mother Teresa.
Okay, sometimes you get that. Usually what you get is okay, it's okay if I can experiment? They can't see you, you're out of the frame, right? Name a person who's good.
Good?
Yeah, a person who's good.
Moshe Rabbeinu.
Moshe Rabbeinu is good, okay. Name a person who's good. Ramban. Okay, so we have good examples. What the students generally say is the students will say, my mother was a very good person. My grandmother is a very good person. My great aunt Sylvia, I hear her mentioned a lot. They'll say, she did such and such, she's a very good person. So then you turn it right back on the students, which is exactly what I'm about to do to you, which is, I didn't ask you to name the smartest person. I asked you to name a person who's smart. So how come the room resonated immediately with the name Einstein? I didn't say, name the smartest person. I said, name a person who's smart. I didn't say, name the wealthiest person. I said, name a person who's rich. Right? Then people pick Bill Gates. The person who there's no peer. The wealthiest person, the smartest person. That is, first of all, an American illness. We love the gold medal winner, and the silver and the bronze, it's nothing. It's nothing. It's garbage.
Shoplifters.
So even though I'm smart, no one said Lyons is smart, right? No one said, I have an uncle who's wealthy. No one said that, because as Americans, we hear smart, smartest. Wealthy, wealthiest. So now, the problem gets turned around. How come, I think everyone struggled with this a little bit, when you ask who's good, there's not an immediate consensus in the room. There's no name that rings out like Einstein. There's kind of like grasping at straws. You always hear Mother Teresa from the back. Fine, that's par for the course. But generally, people are at a loss when you ask them what is good. Then they pick a person that they know did something good, and they say that. But why didn't they say the person who's the most good? Why don't they say the person who had the most virtue? And the answer is, I hope it's pretty clear. There's an objective standard in our society for what makes a person intelligent. Even though we know there's other types of intelligence, there's different types of creative intelligence, fine. But at the end of the day, Einstein and Newton are going to come in first, the physicists are going to win, and then the great artists we know they're just not as smart, okay? That's intelligence. Wealth, it's money. It means how much cash do you have in the bank. Goodness, we live in a society that has absolutely no standard measure of goodness, to the point where if you ask a group of people, name someone who's good, even though as Americans they want to say the person who's most good, they simply cannot put an answer forward because they live in a society that has no even stereotype of what makes a person into a good person. They live in a world, and we live in a world because we live in the same world as them. They live in a world without an agreed upon moral system. That is the world of Calvin Ball. If you look in front of you, you have a Calvin and Hobbes strip of Calvin Ball. Calvin Ball is a fairly simple game. The only rules are you have to wear a mask, and there has to be a ball, and then you make up the rules as you go along. Now, what's really fun about Calvin Ball is you make up the rules as you go along. So everyone can be winning all the time. The downside is that no one actually wins. If there's no rules and you can just make up the rules, so then there's no way to judge if anyone's a winner. That's Calvin Ball. We live in a world of moral Calvin Ball. On the other hand, right, we have a concept of Jewish guilt. How does Jewish guilt play out? Jewish guilt plays out the most when you go to visit your grandmother. And she asks how things are going, which you know is a loaded question. It's not like asking next to the water cooler at work how things are going. There's no agenda then. You know there's an agenda with the grandmother. She asks you how things are going, and as you give an answer, you can see in her eyes that she's not happy with something that you said, and you start to feel guilty. Jewish guilt, it's a very subtle thing. Where does it come from? It comes from the fact that as Jews, we have a consensus of what makes good behavior. And just like in the secular world, there's an idea of what's a good business deal and what's a bad business deal, we have the same thing. Jewish guilt is because we have a consensus of what the way a person should be behaving. That you should be calling your parents. That you should be doing such and such for your spouse. That you should be treating other people a certain way. The reason why we feel guilty is because we're not playing, as Jews, we're not playing Calvin Ball. We have, the Torah sets out ideas of standard behavior, of ways that we're supposed to be. And when we fall short of that, we feel bad. If you live in a world of moral relativism, so then you kind of make it up as you go along. And that never happens. It's funny. A person, I don't know if this is written down anywhere, but I've heard it a few times. A person once approached Rav Soloveitchik from YU and said to him that he was a lower moral standing than the, whatever we'll call it, Bob and Rav Soloveitchik from YU. So Bob approaches Rav Soloveitchik from YU, and he says to him, listen, I'm on a higher moral standing than you because I grapple with the big questions of morality every day. Whereas you kind of feel like you've all got it sorted out already, and you don't think about the big questions, right? What constitutes murder? What constitutes being a good person? You've already accepted that. You've already accepted your Torah. I, on the other hand, I get to ask questions like, does that really make you a good person? Are you really a good person if you keep Shabbat? Are you a really good person if you allow euthanasia, if you don't allow euthanasia? Rav Soloveitchik said, no, the opposite is true. You never make a moral decision. You spend all of your emotional energy trying to decide if what you want to do constitutes stealing or not. If it constitutes a good, you debate the base moral expectations all the time. You're making up the rules. Is this murder? Is it not murder? I, on the other hand, I have a Torah, so I can judge myself. I know what goodness is. Am I hitting that level? If you're making up the rules as you go along, so then you have no way to judge whether or not you've hit a level that you should hit. This is something that we kind of live with all the time as Jewish people. Like I said, there's this idea of Jewish guilt. We don't realize that we're living within a moral system. It's one of the things that we should celebrate a lot when it comes to Shavuos, when we celebrate the Torah. Without the Torah, without a expected set of moral goals, so then we'd only be playing a life of Calvin Ball. We'd be asking, is this action good? Is this action not good? There's no way to win, because the questions would never end, and the rules would keep changing. By having a set of rules, that's when we can climb. Just like when we have a standard societal expectation for what makes a person wealthy, what makes a person intelligent. So then there's room to grow. There's room to improve your intelligence. There's room to improve your wealth. Because we look at a scale and we see how you can climb. The same thing with the Torah being a good person, being able to reach her virtue. That we can look at people who have climbed that ladder and we can learn from them. We don't have to be stuck playing Calvin Ball. Thank you all very much.